Greetings and welcome to the Faith and Firearms Project. My name is Michael Chan. At the Faith and Firearms Project, we study the intersection of guns and religion in America. In today's interview, we have the opportunity to hear from Dr. Kelly Murphy of Central Michigan University. She's assistant professor of religion in the College of Humanities and Social and Behavioral Sciences. Dr. Murphy teaches classes such as Creation, Conquest, Chaos, an Introduction to the Old Testament, From Gospel to Apocalypse, Introduction to the New Testament, From Revelation to the Walking Dead, Apocalypse Then and Now, Sex and Texts, Gender, Sexuality in the Bible, and then Historical Jesus. The purpose, though, of today's interview will be, in fact, about zombies, a fascinating topic, and in particular, the intersection of zombies and religious ideas and of course, guns. So it promises to be an interesting conversation. I hope you'll leave some comments in the box below. You'll also find a number of citations in the description, and those citations are just references to works that Dr. Murphy will refer to in her interview. So I hope you enjoy it, and I'll look forward to hearing from you. Make sure to send me some comments or reviews or ideas to faithandfirearms007@gmail.com. Thank you for watching and enjoy the interview. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Faith and Firearms Project. And we have the honor today of talking with and interviewing Dr. Kelly Murphy. And she is, among other things, working on issues of zombies and religious studies and apocalypses and all kinds of interesting stuff that I think you'll find is relevant to the topic of this particular YouTube channel, which is Faith and Firearms. So, Kelly, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Very exciting.
Anytime you get to talk about zombies, it's exciting.
That is true. That is true.
So, give us a little bit of your background in terms of, how did you get into academia? What is your area of study? And how do zombies relate to some of the work you're doing right now or some of the classes you're teaching?
Wonderful. How did I get into academia? I always say I got into academia because I made a whole bunch of really bad decisions. Although that's not true. I love my job and I love to teach, and I'm really glad that I get to do it. I took some religion classes as an undergrad and discovered that those classes were the places where I was most encouraged to think creatively and also to explore very complex issues. And I learned a lot about myself and about studying, and I ended up being a religion major. And once you're a religion major, what do you do but keep going and get more religion degrees? So I ended up studying Hebrew Bible at Emory University, and I eventually ended up here in Central Michigan, a place called Mount Pleasant, where I am teaching at Central Michigan University. And one of the challenges of teaching at Central Michigan, which is also a very exciting thing, is that people don't just sign up for Bible courses for fun. And so one of the ways that we've tried to work around that is for me to create classes that are geared towards what the students are interested in, which is how I ended up with a class on zombies. And I say it's a class on zombies, but it's also a class on ancient apocalyptic literature, and the zombies were a way to get students into the class to discover how cool it is to study ancient texts as well as contemporary issues.
That's really fascinating, Kelly. You know, and I think the term apocalypse or apocalyptic it has such a wide kind of semantic field. You know, it's used for a lot of different things. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, what's the difference between an ancient apocalypse, you know, something you just mentioned, those maybe ancient Jewish apocalypse or something like that, and the way that the term is kind of used in the modern day?
Yeah, good. So we spend the first week or so of class worrying about precisely that issue, that we think of apocalypse or apocalyptic in a very different way in pop culture than what the term originally means when you get a bunch of Bible nerds together to think about the genre of apocalypse in the ancient world. my students can rattle off the official SBL definition of apocalypse now, which is complicated and has absolutely nothing to do with what we think of as apocalyptic in a lot of ways. So one of the biggest differences, I think, is just that they come into class and they want to know, one of the things that people always ask is, will the book of Revelations, with an S, tell me how the world is going to end? I want to know, what does it say about the world ending? And so then we have to start with, my pet project, which is getting everyone to realize there's no S at the end of the book of Revelation. And also talking about the fact that Revelation was addressing its own context and its own concerns and what was going on when John of Patmos was alive under Roman rule, and getting them to see that it speaks to that context as well as to generations afterwards, but that every time somebody's tried to predict the end of the world with the book of Revelation, they've gotten it wrong.
Yeah, so there are some pretty clear differences then, and to get to move closer toward our main topic, the term zombie apocalypse is sometimes used, and actually this might be a good time to bring out the show and tell, if you don't mind.
Of course.
So the thing that really set me on to this topic, not the Faith and Firearms Project, but the zombie issue, was I was in Las Vegas, actually for the Faith and Firearms Project, and I was visiting a training school called Front Sight, which is out in the Nevada desert, and they train thousands and thousands of people in firearms usage every year. And I got to the hotel, and you know how they have those little displays of, brochures and stuff like that? I saw all these brochures on zombies, and I just thought, wow, that's really fascinating. So I started leafing through them and realized, wait, a lot of these are shooting ranges and things like that. But like, for instance, here in the first brochure, we have a store called the Zombie Apocalypse Store in Vegas, and ask the question, of course, do you have what it takes to survive? And here you can get, it looks like, zombie gifts and targets, I'm assuming for practice shooting, edged weapons, ammo, survival food, grab-and-go kits, jerky. I'm not sure what's up with the jerky thing. But yeah, I don't know. So what in your opinion is the connection here between zombies and apocalypses, or the apocalypse?
It's really fascinating. I mean, people who study zombies have talked about this for a really long time, and so what I'm about to say isn't new. But originally, zombies had nothing to do with what we think of as zombies today. Zombies emerge out of the colonization of Haiti and slavery issues, and people being brought from West Africa to Haiti and other parts of Africa to Haiti, and being forced to work on the plantations. And so it emerges out of a religious tradition, a native religious tradition, and has to do with fears of losing one's own power, one's own self-will, being enslaved. And it gets appropriated by the West pretty early on by people who are afraid of the other, of people who aren't like them. And the fear that, for instance, the movie White Zombie becomes this wonderful tale about, it's a horrible movie, but it becomes, for an academic purpose, it's a really interesting study of the fear that a white woman might be zombified by these, strange other people in Haiti. And then George Romero famously changes the zombie, merging it with the ghoul, so we get our flesh-eating, brain-eating zombies that we have now. And so it really starts with Romero, I think, this idea that zombies and the end of the world go together somehow, and then it goes on to take just all of these different pathways throughout sort of the history of the zombie apocalypse as it begins in the 1960s and branches out to today. And it's strange. The zombie has stayed around for a long time. It's a monster that has retained its significance in our culture, and I think one of those reasons is because it really addresses the question of what does it mean to be human, and where is that line between zombies and us. And zombies also provide, as people who think about zombies say all the time, a really wonderful outlet for violence that's allowable, because they're not really human, and so it's okay.
Oh, that is a fascinating history. I knew none of that. So originally they weren't zombies weren't a kind of supernatural or preternatural. I don't even know if that's not even really the right word, but this not quite human but somehow dangerous creature. They were simply people of a
Zombies,
different ethnicity. Or go ahead. Yeah.
well, no, not quite. Zombies were originally people who had been, uh, according to Haitian Voodoo religion, people who had been enslaved or taken over by a sorcerer, often because they transgressed some kind of cultural norm. And so the fear wasn't of zombies, the fear was of being made a zombie and losing your self will and being forced to, say, work in the fields with no mind or control of your own actions by yourself.
So I guess it's almost analogous to a kind of demonization or the possession by another spirit. Would you say that's true or not so much?
I I don't think it's about possession because you completely just lose all. You just become sort of an empty shell, I think. The issue, rather, I think, is that this is an instance where the creation of a monster, and it's not really a monster in this case, just reflects what's happening in their society. It's a reflection of the fear of being enslaved and losing power in a culture where they're already enslaved and they've already lost power because of the French and the colonization of Haiti and all of those things.
So it kind of so the zombies then reflect some level of cultural anxiety, at least they did in their initial stages. Would you say that that's also true of the way that zombies are used today? I mean, I think again about that picture that I just showed you. You know, do you have what it takes to survive, or are you prepared? I mean, even underneath that question, though I think the brochure is kind of playful, one wonders if there are also anxieties that are associated with the zombie and modern media.
Absolutely. I think that that's sort of the prevailing theory is that the zombie continually reflects what it is that we're scared of or are most anxious about in our society. So for Romero, there was a lot of reflection about race relations, about consumerism in his later films, in Night of the Living Dead, some stuff about communism and the fear of being taken over. And then what happens is really interesting. We kind of lose the zombies for a while until following the events of 9/11, when the zombie comes back very strongly in our films and literature. And they've gotten faster at that point. They've gotten scarier. They're often connected to some form of a virus that can take over, the entire population very, very quickly. And that is absolutely reflective of fears that we have of terrorism, of ecological disasters, of our inability to control, of our need to constantly be connected to technology and losing ourselves and all of those things, I think.
And do you think that does The Walking Dead break from that those trends in any significant ways, or does it basically reflect them and perpetuate them?
I think The Walking Dead reflects the trends of, we don't know yet in The Walking Dead, at least in the television show, what caused the zombie apocalypse.
That was my question. I haven't honestly seen very much of it.
And so, although there were some hints when they visited the CDC and that kind of thing, but we still don't know. What The Walking Dead does really nicely, whether they do it intentionally or not, is think about big human questions. What does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to be human? When do you have hope, and when does hope just disappear? What's the nature of the soul? There's actually some really interesting discussions about dualism at the beginning of the Walking Dead, in terms of whether or not, what makes us human is in our brain, and that's it, and once the brain is gone, we're gone, or if there is something that lives on afterwards. So there's all these philosophical discussions happening underneath the surface of a very pop culture oriented show.
So I remember one scene, I think it was in the first episode, where, and I don't know the people's names. Who is the police officer? What's his name?
Rick.
Rick?
Yes.
Okay. So there's this moment when Rick sees this little girl who has been
Yeah.
zombified, I guess it was one. And it struck me as such an interesting moment because he clearly hesitates, right, to to shoot
And
her. Yeah.
yeah,
Go
yeah.
go ahead, go ahead, spin it
I
off of
was
that.
going to say that that's one of the most fantastic scenes at the beginning of The Walking Dead is this moment when he sees the little girl and he thinks it's an actual little girl for a moment. And then she turns
Turned
around.
around, I think. You can't really
Yeah,
see her face.
exactly. And she took because she picks up a teddy bear. It's actually one of the times when The Walking Dead seems to break its own rules because she reaches down to pick up a doll or a teddy bear or something. And usually the zombies don't pick up random things, especially things that you would associate with their their gender or their who they were pre-zombification. And so when she turns around and he realizes that she's a zombie, all of a sudden you can see all of the moral quandaries that are going to happen in this show because here we have a child who has been turned into a monster who he's going to have to kill or it's going to kill him. She's a little girl, and so we see the complications around gender and all kinds of things happen in that instant, and it's a fantastic but also heartbreaking moment, I think.
Yeah, I remember seeing that and seeing that particular scene and thinking they are really diving into some interesting ethical issues, and they put it right there in the front. I mean, I can see why people would be attracted at least to that aspect of it.
Yeah, I think so.
Let me throw up a couple other pictures. Okay, so first of all, this is just a Gmail or a Google search. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, so these are like zombie hunter guns, and I think you and I have talked about this briefly over Facebook, but you can go into almost any gun shop or sporting goods store that sells guns and firearms products, and you'll find like zombie guns or guns that have little zombie symbols or zombie hater symbols or what whatever it might be, something that points toward this interest in zombies. And I'm just kind of wondering, like, what's your read on why America is so fascinated with this connection between zombies and then firearms and the apocalypse? It's a very complex and knotty kind of problem, or
Is
not problem, just issue. It's a complex issue.
it really is. I'm not sure that I've sorted it all out yet in my head.
Yeah.
I think there are a couple of different things going on with these kinds of products. On the one hand, the gun industry is an industry that makes money, and zombies is also an industry. The zombie industry is an industry that makes money, and so it makes sense to me that they would be wedded together because that equals more money.
So there are market issues at play.
Yeah, I think there are marketing issues there. But I also think that there's this really sort of problematic issue where an imaginary monster becomes real in a sense, in that people are willing to spend a whole bunch of money, extra money, on products that are specifically linked to, the forthcoming zombie apocalypse. And yet it's an imaginary monster. It doesn't exist. And again, I think that betrays all sorts of cultural anxieties, that if one has a gun, one might be protected or will be protected. That guarantees protection against anything, even imaginary monsters that don't exist, that one can be prepared to face anything. You see this with the CDC. The CDC even capitalized on zombies by having a zombie preparation guide, which at the end of the day, when you read through it all the way, it turns out to be a dream. A guy has a dream, and the whole lesson of the comic is that you should have extra water and batteries and stuff in your basement in case of an emergency.
No, that's interesting because in the case of the CDC, zombie apocalypse is really just a kind of cipher, or it's a symbol for, I guess, societal collapse or something like that, or for, I guess, any kind of disaster. And I've looked at, I know there are some prepper type websites, people who are preparing for natural disasters, who will talk about the zombie apocalypse, but then when you read the article, it's really clear that they're not really that interested in zombies. It represents something,
else.
some potential threat that could happen in the
Exactly.
future.
And I think that that's the thing. And I also think that zombies. So I think you and I have talked about this before, that that there have been troubling zombie targets in the past. The one called the ex-girlfriend, the one that looked a little bit like Barack Obama, that were pulled off the shelf eventually. And we see there this issue of people saying, like, that one really does look like my ex-girlfriend, and I can't wait until I can shoot her in the head. Yes, and so then we get into very troubling aspects of what happens when people take the zombie apocalypse seriously, because again, imaginary monsters become real people that you get to practice shooting in your backyard, and does that lead to real violence? And I don't know, but
Yeah.
Kelly Baker has a wonderful book called The Zombies Are Coming. It's an ebook, and she does an amazing job of exploring American gun culture and our interest in zombies together in her book.
Oh, that's fascinating. I will need to look at that. I did not know about until we spoke, I didn't know about the Obama zombie targets. So
Yeah.
this was a controversy, what, early on in his presidency, or when? Do you know?
No, I don't know what the year was for it. If you Google Rocky or Barry zombie target, you will find him. So. And the website, I think it's ZMB Industries or Zombie Industries, were the people that created it. And they claimed that the zombie apocalypse doesn't discriminate against gender or race. Anyone could be turned into a zombie, so it was just accidental that it happened to look like Obama. But again,
That didn't seem very convincing, at least to.
no. And you know, the reason why I know this is because it's in Kelly Baker's book, which is again a wonderful book that explores this issue really nicely.
Yeah, I'll definitely look at that. I didn't know about it. Well, Dr. Murphy, thank you so much for this conversation. I think this is a topic that I haven't really had the opportunity to explore much as part of the Faith and Firearms Project. Mostly we're interested in, hearing from people who make religious and theological connections to the gun debate more broadly and to firearms ownership. But it's such a hot topic. Zombies are such an interesting topic, and they seem like a magnet for a lot of different cultural symbols. So I appreciate your willingness to explore that with me.
Well, no problem. And I think, I mean, as a sort of closing statement, teaching about the Bible and zombies together is very controversial. It makes people very angry and upset sometimes. But I think that it's really important, I think zombies are really important because they help people learn to think and to use their brains. And you can study zombies and learn about cultural appropriation, about fear of the other, about the problem of violence and gender and race and how it all intersects. And so I have students who won't tell their parents that they're in my class because they're worried their parents will be upset. But I actually think that zombies provide an amazing opportunity for us to think theologically and philosophically about life and religion and violence and all kinds of things. So I'm excited about your project, and I appreciate to talk to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Murphy. I appreciate that, and that is a fantastic closing statement. Actually, really showcases how important this topic is. So all the best to you and your class. And you're teaching this currently, right?
Yeah, right now. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Great. It's going great. They're awesome kids. So awesome students. All right.
Wonderful. Thank you again for the conversation, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Bye.